Hi there, we're taking a look at chapter 10, but we're at the second half of the chapter that deals with the dark side of communication. And that's actually a class that I took at San Diego State when I was getting my master's degree. So many of the researchers in here I've actually heard speak live about their research, especially on page 283. Guerrero was a fellow grad student, Anderson was an instructor, and so was Spitzberg. So these are people that I've read their research, I've participated in their research, and I've heard them speak about it. So they definitely like this dark side of relationships. So the first thing we're going to look at is jealousy. And there's three kind of parts or three components of jealousy. And if you think back to some situations in which you've been jealous, you may be able to label some of your behaviors. So the first is cognitive jealousy. Cognitive deals with your brain, thoughts, how you process situations. And this would involve suspicious thinking, you're worrying about your significant other. You may be imagining different scenarios and kind of just thinking through what could happen if your jealousy is in fact justified. The next is emotional jealousy, and this is now the feelings that you have. So you're not necessarily thinking about what could happen. Now you're feeling sad. You see somebody talking to your boyfriend and they're laughing. Somebody's looking at your girlfriend in a way that is provocative, and you start to kind of feel sad, or you're angry, or you're suspicious, and now these emotions are kind of taking over. And then the other component is the behavioral jealousy, and that's what you do in response to the feelings and emotions. So maybe you're looking at email, you're going into their Facebook, and you're trying to do this mate guarding process. And that means what you're doing is you're guarding. And so you're doing a variety of things to guard it. And so maybe you're responding back in emails, or you're texting back to somebody saying, hey, stop texting my boyfriend, leave my girlfriend alone, things like that. Don't confuse jealousy with envy. Envy is more that when you look at somebody and you desire what they have. And that's much different than jealousy, because jealousy, we have a feeling when we feel like our relationship's in danger. So envy is, I want what that person has. Jealousy is, my relationship's in danger. So keep those two clear. But also understand those three components of jealousy: the cognitive, emotional, and behavioral. Cognitive jealousy is usually kind of the first level, and emotional jealousy. Behavioral jealousy is when our jealousy kind of gets the better of us, and now we're kind of almost being what people would call paranoid. What can you do when in response to your jealousy? How can you deal with it, or how do people deal with it? The first thing is our nonverbal expression. So you cry, you express your hurt, and you usually do that non-verbally. Then the other thing that can happen is we would threaten violence. Man may say to his significant other, if that guy comes around here again, I'm going to knock him out. Or you're going to say, you don't want to see what's going to happen to you if you talk to her again. The other thing that can happen is verbal aggression. Now I start calling you names, I'm sarcastic, I'm accusing you, and I'm just saying that you're kind of a terrible person because you're making me feel jealous. And then we can also withdraw and just kind of shut down and not talk to that other person. One of the best things you can do in dealing with jealousy, which isn't up here, is what we call integrative communication. And that means you're self-disclosing, you're talking to them about your feelings, you're being honest, you're listening, and you're really engaging in conflict management, conflict resolution, all of the things we've talked about this semester you would want to do to open up and expose, this is how I'm feeling, this is why I'm feeling, I know that it's probably not logical or it doesn't make sense, but I'm still having some trouble and I just need some reassurances. And we saw earlier in chapter 10 that giving somebody reassurances, that's part of a friendship, that's part of a romantic relationship. So we shouldn't be frustrated that we have to give assurances. That should be expected in these type of intimate relationships. The next section in that second half of chapter 10 talks about bullying, and bullying consists of abusive acts committed again and again and again. We're seeing bullying more at school, but also in the workplace. The workplace seems to be a place where bullying's getting a little bit more exposure, and it's certainly happening a lot more often. So, sorry about that. I advanced the slide. Types of bullying are gossiping about somebody, caustic joking, and caustic just means very sarcastic, mean, making somebody the butt of your jokes, treating others as inferior, possibly you're interrupting them or you're not giving their ideas the proper attention when they contribute. You may exclude them from functions, so everybody's going out after work for happy hour and they're not invited, or everybody's going to go to a birthday lunch and you don't ask them to come. You call them names, verbally insult them. Negative expressions, you may roll your eyes, you may sneer at them, or you may just avoid eye contact with them. The next one is excessive blaming. This is where you just are constantly blaming them for things going wrong, blaming them for breakdowns in communication, blaming them for processes not going as smoothly as they would otherwise if they weren't involved. Excessively monitoring, double checking their emails, checking their written reports more often, kind of hanging around, looking over their shoulder when you don't do that with other employees or other coworkers. And then last but not least, excessive criticism. You're constantly kind of giving them either constructive feedback or unconstructive criticism. And this is where you're just kind of picking at them. What do you do with bullying? Well, the first of all is tell them in an assertive manner and using I messages. So I feel blank when you do blank. I don't know if it's because of this or that, but I would like you to stop so I can have a more supportive work environment. You don't want to be aggressive. You definitely want to use those assertive communication skills and remember those 4-part messages. The next is make the opposition clear. That means that if you work at a place, make it very clear that you oppose bullying. Make it very clear that you will not tolerate bullying. And especially as a manager, managers need to have a platform in which they stand up and say bullying of any kind will not be tolerated at our workplace. And then also take action. When you see somebody else being bullied, step in. 81% of bullies are bosses, which is really, really difficult. But if you keep a record of the behaviors, hopefully that will be enough to go to higher management and say, not fire this person, but they need some help, they need some remediation, they need some additional training because these are the behaviors they're engaging in. If somebody else is being bullied, you can even keep track for them or go to them and say, listen, I see what's happening and I'd like to help you keep a record of it so we can kind of unite to change the behavior of this other person. And that truly is the goal.